I've looked at this subject of the sun and the Earth's core. There was a writer, a very fascinating, interesting researcher, an older guy I heard on another radio show a long time ago, and I've been following his work. His name was Ian, I-A-N. Can't remember his last name now that I need it. I can't remember it. But he's written so many books. I think he was from South Africa, and he was writing about the Earth and how it was formed, etc. And he said that all of the planets scientifically are provable, scientifically, that all the planets in our solar system are hollow at the core. They have to be hollow at the core, and maybe a small core. It's not the whole, like that, the inner Earth story about the inside of the Earth is a whole universe, and we are actually living on the inside of the Earth and all of that stuff. But this particular writer and this particular scientist was fascinating to listen to as he explained that his book was a very thick book written about the hollow Earth, and that the Earth is hollow at the center, just as all the other planets are also, and why they have to be hollow. According to scientific investigation, they have to be hollow. And I can't remember his name. I'm sure it was Ian was his original first name. But he brought out the fact that it has to be hollow because of experiments that have been done with sound waves in the Earth, and that, the Earth itself is not molten lava at the center at all. That is just a cover story that has no basis in scientific fact at all. And that his book was highly recommended he was talking on one of the big shows I heard, and he was saying that he's gotten so many responses from scientists around the world after reading his book that the Earth is actually hollow at the core. Happily, most people don't care. They don't read. They don't care. They just go along, and I've said so many times before, and I'll say it again. Children do not like to be made fun of in classroom, in a schoolroom setting. If the teacher calls upon you and you haven't done your homework and you don't understand a problem, and the teacher tells you to get up before the class and explain this problem and how to get the correct understanding of the problem. Well, if you haven't studied it and you don't know what they're talking about, and it's not something that is not of interest to you as a kid, but you're going to be standing in front of the class trying to figure out what to say, and you're going to be laughed at and mocked by your fellow students. No child wants to be mocked and laughed at in front of a class. Well, the same thing is true for adults. Adults are nothing more than grown-up children. Adults don't like to be laughed at and mocked in front of an audience that they were wrong and they didn't know something. They don't like that. It's very distasteful for people to be mocked and laughed at. That's why today the people who run our planet, the guys who say they own the world and they run our planet, they know that generally speaking, people will not go against what everybody wants to believe is true. There's only going to be a handful who will stand up for truth. Most people will not stand out there by themselves and say something is a lie and it's not true, because most people want to be loved and thought well of by their friends. And friends are not going to think very well of you if you're going to go against their religious beliefs or against their political beliefs. The people will always follow each other. The blind lead the blind, and they all fall in the pit together. So we got blind leaders and blind guides who tell us stories, old wise tale stories, and tell us it's history, and we just go along with it. Why? Because everybody else in town goes along with it. And if you want to buck the crowd and you want to stand up and say that this is not true, it is not history at all, then you're going to be mocked and laughed at, and People don't want to face their fellow man. I don't care myself. I understand. I've always preferred standing for what is true and admitting it and get it over with. Just admit that something is true and move on with it. And so that's what I do. I don't mind putting myself out there to be ridiculed because I'm just an ordinary man pursuing extraordinary knowledge. I'm not a world-class expert. I'm just an ordinary person who questions everything. I'm tired of people telling me all kinds of stories that they believe are absolutely true, and then you find out how much you didn't know, and you get yourself in trouble. This is why so many people in America are in trouble with the law, because they don't know what the law really is. They don't know what it actually says. I'm of the opinion that when you see the molten lava coming out of the volcanoes, so it's coming out of the earth. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that the molten lava goes all the way down to the center of the earth. It's all the earth itself is nothing but molten lava. No, I don't think that at all. I don't think that is true at all. That when you see a volcano that's close to the surface, but that's not what the earth is way down deep inside the earth. It's not all molten lava. We know that there are huge bodies of water in the earth. We know that there's enormous bodies of water, whole oceans of water under the earth, along with the molten lava. And so I don't think that there's molten lava under the earth, all over the earth, all the way down to the core. I don't think that at all. That's ludicrous, is my opinion. So I think that the molten lava that we're seeing coming out of volcanoes are very close to the surface, and that there's something going on just beneath the surface of the earth, that where lava does exist, but it doesn't go all the way down through the earth so that the entire earth is filled with lava. I don't think that's logical at all. It doesn't make sense to me. And besides, I've heard scientists talking about this, and they are saying that the earth is actually hollow at the center. That makes some sense to me. But you keep in mind that there's 24 hours a day, every day, there are thousands and thousands of electrical storms, lightning hitting the earth by the thousands of strikes a day. It's been said that the astronauts can see continual lightning on the earth 24/7. Continual lightning on the earth somewhere. So my point is that if there's powerful lightning bolts, are very, very powerful. And what are they doing when they hit the earth, when the lightning jumps from the earth to the clouds or from the clouds to the earth, whatever way it works? I'm not a scientist, but I'm assuming that these powerful electrical volts, that they're 24/7, which they are. Is never ever a time when the earth itself is without a huge electrical storm, some kind of a volcano, electricity, or hurricanes or something. Well, that much electricity being generated because the earth itself is like a dynamo. It's turning, it's twisting, and it's circulating, and it's creating friction, and that friction is creating electricity, and the electricity is grounding itself in the ground. And so I'm thinking that there may be some reason why the electricity being pumped into the earth 24/7 around the globe keeps this hot molten lava close to the surface, keeps it bubbling and keeps it hot. It's because the earth is rotating like a dynamo, like at the big dams that dynamos create the electricity. And if the earth is turning around and like a dynamo and creating electricity, it's being grounded during storms, so that we have electrical storms bring the electricity back into the earth. Well, you just keep pumping that kind of electricity back into the earth, and it's going to heat up the rock. It's going to heat it up very hot.
Right.
So you're going to have molten lava. Yeah, but it doesn't mean it's molten lava is all the way down to the core. We don't know what's at the core. That's
So,
right.
You have another, again, it's a chemical reaction that if you ask most people, they tell you, well, look, there's obviously water in the cloud and it then falls to the earth,
Yeah, but why does it fall to the earth? The reason why we have rain is because of meteorites. Meteorites cause us to have rain. So if you didn't have meteors hitting the earth, you wouldn't have rain. Meteors hitting the earth causes the clouds to drop water because of the meteorites. It goes back to the idea that when a meteor hits the earth, it explodes, and when it explodes, it blows into a bomb, and when it hits the atmosphere, it blows into a bomb kind of a thing, and it's burning as it shoots across the sky. Where all the dust from that burning of meteorites, which continually hit the earth 24 hours a day, we're being struck by meteors. All over the earth, we're being struck by the meteors during the day, during the evening, during nighttime, 24 hours a day, every day. And when those big meteors come in, they blow up and they burn up in the atmosphere. We see them as they shoot across the sky. And they create a lot of burnt dust, a lot of, what do you call it? The dust from a fire. What's the word I'm looking for? The dust from a fire. My mind went blank for the word I'm looking for. But anyway, the meteors burning up leave a stream of dust up in the atmosphere. And then over the years and years and years of meteors hitting the atmosphere, burning up, the dust itself builds up and starts to fall to earth. And when it falling to the earth, the dust is falling to the earth, it hits into the clouds, and the clouds, little droplets of water form around each little speck of dust, and it gets so heavy that it falls into rain. So when it rains, it's because of the dust it's the dust in the atmosphere caused by meteorites that are causing we to have rain. So yeah, of course, and that's why I think this idea of a world inside the earth, the inside earth, there is this ancient story where inside the earth is a whole universe inside the earth. And I think that may be talking about the same thing J.R.R. Tolkien was talking about, the people who live in the earth. Are you talking about the secret societies who are behind the world religions or behind world governments? They're living inside the earth. They are another culture. Yeah, I think so. They are living with us on this earth, but they are not all part of us. They're not like us. They're far, far superior to us. And so they are giving us all of these stories, and we, like humans, like the animals, we just go along to get along, and we accept these stories as must be true, because that's what everybody believes. And that's what's being taught to us in our colleges and universities. So you go to college so that you can get a work permit. That's all you're doing is just getting a work permit. And so when you come out of the university, you can now go get a job because you've got the imprimatur of the Caesar, the emperor of the empire has given you his imprimatur of his name. And so now you've got a degree, which means you can now go out and get a job. So we're back to the same old story about how history is always being reinterpreted and retold to us and given to us over and over again. And nobody seems to question anything. Nobody seems to question where did the universities get their so-called knowledge. And, people go to watch movies like Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and never ever think about why did Indiana Jones when he was sent by the U.S. government to find the lost Ark of the Covenant? Why did he go to Tibet first? Indiana Jones, if you remember, went to Tibet first. Because why? Because he had to find something in Tibet to show him where the lost Ark is going to be. And so when he found what he was looking for in the movie, they made it to be a crystal, some kind of a crystal he was looking for. But no, why did Spielberg have Indiana Jones go to Tibet? Because he had to go to Tibet to find out something about the lost Ark that was only in Tibet. And once you go there and you find out what you need to know, now you can go and go right to the lost Ark. And where did Indiana Jones go after he went to Tibet? Did he go to the Holy Land, to Israel? No, he didn't go to the Holy Land. He went to Egypt. And he found the lost Ark in an Egyptian tomb in Egypt, outside of Cairo, not in the Holy Land. That's Spielberg with Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones finds a lost Ark in Egypt, not the Holy Land. Why? Because everybody who studied the subject of the lost Ark knows there was no Jewish Ark at all. There was no Jewish Ark of the Covenant. It was called the Ark of the Contract, and it goes back to Egypt. It's an Egyptian story. And all you got to do is go on the web and look up where did the lost Ark of the Covenant of the Jews come from, and it will tell you it was an Egyptian story dreamt up by the Egyptian priests. Everybody who's looked at the subject knows that the lost Ark is actually dealing with an Egyptian symbol that was found in Egypt by Indiana Jones. And who was looking for the lost Ark in Egypt was the Nazis. And that's an interesting point. The Nazis were looking for the lost Ark in real life. But in the movie, Spielberg has who is leading the Nazi delegation looking for the lost Ark in the movie. It's a Frenchman, a French scientist. Why was a Frenchman leading the Nazis looking for the Jewish Ark of the Covenant? Why France? That's another interesting point. France, going back to the French Prieuré de Sion, the French Grand Orient Freemasons, who were actually behind the idea of trying to find a lost Ark, and they're leading the Nazis. I just think it's all a wonderful, wonderful, dazzling ancient stories that's been so misrepresented, so many lies and deceptions and promotions of propaganda and religions and ideas and belief systems and banks and all kinds of other monstrosities that have been fed to the people of this world, and that's why we are continually perplexed about the future. We don't know where we've come from. We don't know who we are, and we have no idea where we're going. It seems to be that we're hardwired in the nature of the human to be selfish, self-centered, and bent toward evil. We're bent toward being bad. And the reason why is because I believe the Bible is explaining it, that the Apostle Paul says in the New Testament that there is a war. We have a war not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and against the powers of evil in this world. And it seems as though that mankind, we're told in the Bible, in the New Testament, Christianity tells us that we are two different creatures. We are the original animalistic creature, but we are also endowed with the ability to become very spiritual. And I remember one of my professors many years ago drew a straight line on the chalkboard in the class, straight across, and then in the middle of that line he drew a little short line up, going up from that middle line, and a little short one going down. And then he drew another line next to that going way up, about 10 or 15 inches up from that middle line and 10 or 15 inches down from that line. And he said, this is the life on the earth. Animals can only be so good. So they have a little short span to be good. But animals are simply animals. They are instinctive. They don't think about what they're going to do. They just do it. And so they can only be so bad because they're just a dog is a dog. He can only be so good. So he can only be so bad because he can only be what he is, just a dog. But the other line is humans. We have the ability to go way down deep into dark, evil, as far down into the darkness that humans are capable of doing. And we know humans are capable of a lot of dirty and evil things. But we also have the ability to go from that middle line up high. We can go all the way up into the realm of the divine. We can go up and understand and create beautiful music. We can create beautiful art. We can communicate with the great spirit in the universe. Or we can go down so low that, that they can't get a radar fix on you, how bad you really are. Mm-hmm. And so I believe that it is hardwired in all of us as humans that we have the ability to be very, very spiritually decent and wonderful creatures, but we also have in each one of us the ability to be really criminal.
Right.
And so that's why I think it's hardwired in us, because the people who are running the government are just human like you are. They live the way you do. They don't live the way you do, but they live human lives. Right. And therefore, when they're tempted with money and do anything they want to do and get away with it because the system protects them, then they're going to fall into it. And it's not their fault. I know, I believe that people who are involved in organized crime are caught in it like a trap. Mm. You get a little something, that the organization, the outfit wants to give you. They make it easy on you to get something, to get the house you want. They make it easy for you to get the new car you want. They make it easy for you to pay your bills. You got the money. You got the protection. And before you know it, they gave you something. Now you got to give them something. Right. And the way the government works, there's a law that says anything the U.S. government finances, it owns. Right. So if you have a big corporation and they can tax you out of business. The federal government can put you out of business very easy. They can find something that you put on your income tax, and they can take your business away from you, and now they own your business. And because they own your business, now they can decide, how that business is going to be run, and all the money goes to them because they took it from you. That's the way the big railroads caught on. That's the way big time banks and insurance companies work. Is because government comes in and ruins those companies. And now, because those companies were so important, the government needs those companies. They need those big corporations. And so they will come in and finance and give them, they'll bail them out. What do you mean bail them out? Anything the government bails out, it owns. That's according to the maritime law. Anything the government will finance, they own it. They're not your partners. Many years ago, I got a phone call from an FBI agent in San Diego, and he gave me his name, said he was an agent in the FBI. And I said to him, I wrote his name down, and I said, I'll call you back. I have to go now. And so we hung up. And then I called information and got the telephone number for the FBI office in San Diego. They gave that to me. I called that number, and it was the FBI. And then I asked for him, and they put me through to him. And when he came on the line, I said, okay, now talk to me, because I now know you are FBI. And he said, I just wanted to call and tell you that we like what you are doing. We like hearing you. and that we appreciate the work that you're doing. But we want to tell you that I want to tell you that if you have any problem, it's not going to be with your government. It's going to be with the churches. He said, the FBI know, we know, we're not saying it publicly, but we know the churches are actually criminal organizations. They make millions and millions of dollars. They pay no taxes, and they have control over the minds of multiple millions of people, so they can direct them to vote a certain way and act a certain way. And that is a very powerful presence on the earth. If you can control millions of people and make nothing but money off of them as a corporation and pay no taxes, that obviously smells like a criminal racket. And he said, so we know in the FBI that churches are actually tools in the hands of gangsters. We know that. So if you're going to have any problem in your life doing what you do, it's not going to be from your government. It's going to be from religion. The churches are going to find you to be unacceptable. And he says, so just be aware of that. Don't think of the churches as meek and mild operations. We know what they are. They are criminal organizations, and I'm just giving you a heads up on what's coming for you in the future. Joseph Farrell is another person you have to listen to, because this man is off the charts as far as I'm concerned. The most brilliant mind I've come across in years. Joseph Farrell, Farrell. I would suggest people go on the web to YouTube and type in Joseph Farrell, Farrell, and listen to anything he's talking about, no matter what it is. Just listen to him, and you tell me if this is not one of the most brilliant minds that America has going for it today. Joseph Farrell can be a very frightening, the stuff he talks about, because he knows what he's talking about. He's got the credentials to prove it. And I'm telling you, when he gets into the Roman religion and the Roman governments and the secret societies of banking fraternities and the families that run those banking consortiums in Europe and where they came from. And there was another man that was heavily involved in the occult religions during the 1800s. I can't remember his name. I've come across it many times. I can't remember his name, but he said in one of his writings, he said that there will come a time when America and the government, the federal government of America, will slowly but surely begin to clamp down on information. It will come. It won't be so obvious to everyone, but it will show itself, and you will see it. There will come a time when the U.S. government will slowly but surely begin to operate to dumb down the citizens and to shut down all portals of knowledge and important information will be shut down by the U.S. federal government, because they do not want the people thinking too much. It's a very difficult situation for them. How would you like to call yourself an absolute Führer, an absolute dictator in a land of people with 150 IQs? If you get a country in which the whole country is highly educated, highly intelligent, and extraordinarily brilliant people in the country, and you're going to come out and you're going to call yourself an absolute dictator, and you don't even have a high school education, and how are you going to be an absolute dictator and frighten the people when the people are far smarter than you will ever be? They're far more advanced than you possibly could ever be. And so that's why the powers that be in the U.S. government want to keep people ignorant. So they will look like they are intelligent compared to the people. And And it's true. That's exactly right. Admiral Rickover, if he was one of the famous admirals in the U.S. Navy. When Admiral Rickover retired, because he was such a celebrated figure in the military of this country, when he retired, 60 Minutes did an interview with Admiral Rickover. And I recall they said to him, the host on 60 Minutes said to Admiral Rickover, he said, Admiral, it has been said here in Washington that you are one of the most brilliant minds U.S. military has ever had. You are an extraordinarily genius. And Admiral Rickover smiled, and he said, well, I thank you for saying that. It's very kind, but that's not true. It's really not true. He said, the actual fact of the matter is that the people in the U.S. government are so damn ignorant and ill-informed and just downright stupid that anybody who has a half a brain looks like a genius to them. And he said, so that's the real story. I'm not the genius that everybody's saying I am. It's just that I had an education. I learned how to think and read. And so if you think at all and you use your mind at all, you look like a genius. I said to you before, all we can do in this country is cry and complain about the conditions. We can rant and rave about the conditions we live under and how terrible it is. But there's nothing you can do about it. Spelled D-O. Nothing you can do about it. Why? Because you don't have the power to do anything about the situation you live under. And so the reason why you don't have the power is because knowledge is power. If you really understand thoroughly how a criminal operation is operating, you're not going to be taken in by it. You're not going to be fooled by it and deceived by it. You're not going to think they are your friends. They're going to know who they are and what they're doing. And this is going to protect you intellectually and spiritually, protect you from the criminals if you really know how the world actually works. And that's what I've been trying to do, is call to the attention of people around the world that governments are as corrupt as you could be. They are already that corrupt. Mm. And that the only way you're going to be able to do anything about the world you live in is if you know how it works. If you don't know how something works, you can't fix it. We are involved in buying into, that's why I said to you before, that it's propaganda. And propaganda does not deceive you. Propaganda helps you to deceive yourself. And it plays on your emotions. They use terms in the government like support our boys. Mm-hmm. We support our boys in the war. And I've said so many times, you go into a bar in San Diego in the Navy district, you go into a bar, you see a bunch of guys there with a beer at the bar, and you go over and say, hey boy, and call him a boy. You will find out, they're going to tell you, hey, how big do men get where you come from, son? Calling me a boy. Mm-hmm. You better back off. I'm not a boy. And then you find out, no, they're grown men who are trained to defend themselves. They carry guns. They're not a boy. So if you want to support the troops, well, that's one thing, but don't call them our boys, because they're not a boy. If you go to a basketball game of teenagers or go to a little league baseball club, then you're supporting your boys.
Right.
But you're not supporting boys when you go out and talk about support our boys. The troops, they're not boys. They're grown men. They've been taught and trained to kill. They are military men. Mm. So give me all that crap about, well, we support our boys. That's our boys. I'm so sick and tired of hearing that kind of politician rhetoric, all that politicians terms that that they get you involved in, and now you feel like, oh yeah, well, I'm supporting our boys. It's just a very sad situation how governments manipulate our thinking and how churches and religion are based on natural things which we have lived with all of our lives. As long as humans have been on the earth, there are certain things we all understood, and those ideas that we've all lived with for thousands of years have been put into stories so that we can now live with those stories that teach us what we've always known. This is why today in religion, in the Western world, God is a man. He's called God the Father. Why is God the Father? Well, because of the rain that comes in the summer and the spring. The spring rains is why we call God the Father, is because of spring rains. And why? Why is that? Because in the ancient world, the peoples understood that the connection between humans procreating, having children, and having offspring, and how the earth has offspring. All the animals have offspring in the spring. Offspring, meaning that the animals reproduce themselves. The plants reproduce themselves. Everything comes alive and is alive and reproduces itself in the spring. Why? Because of the rains that come. And so the rain was considered to be the sacred fluid that would impregnate Mother Earth, Mother Nature. Mother Nature woke up in the spring and plants began to reproduce themselves, the flowers coming out, the animals coming out and reproducing themselves. So spring was a time for reproduction. And how did the earth, Mother Earth and Mother Nature reproduce herself? With the spring rains, the holy fluid that came from God the Father to impregnate Mother Earth. And this is why, from there you can go into, if you want to be born again, as the Christians call it, to be born again, you have to go back into your mother's water, because when you were born, her water broke and you came out to life. So if you want to be born again and come out to a new life, you have to go back into your mother's water. What do you mean your mother's water? Your mother nature, Mother Earth. Go back into the lake, and it's her water. And you go under the water and you come out, and now you are a new life. You are a new person. You've been born again. You come out of your mother's water. And your mother, her water broke, and you came out to life. This is why all ships, sailing ship and rocket ships, or any kind of a ship, is referred to as she. All ships on the earth are female. And the captains will always tell you that she's a good ship and she's very seaworthy and she's this and she's that. What do you mean she? It's because of a ship is referred to as female because she transports she delivers the product. The product comes through her. And so the ship is a female, and wherever the ship pulls into port and wherever it parks, it's at a berth. It's called B-E-R-T-H. A berth is where a ship sits. And everything that the ship is giving, taking off board, taking off the ship to be sold, has to have its own certificate of manifest. Because yesterday the ship wasn't here, but this morning when we go to work on the dock, the ship is here. It came in last night on the water. So and the ship is sitting in her berth. And so everything coming out that ship has to have its own certificate. And so we call it a birth certificate. Well, when you were born, you have to have a birth certificate. And it's got to be signed where? It's got to be signed by the dock. The dock has to sign the birth certificate. And therefore you are now an international maritime admiralty product. You come into this world in water, so you are a maritime product. And your body is 78% water. So on the New York Stock Exchange, your body is being bought and sold as a commodity. You are a security on the stock market. And as long as you do your work well and you pay your taxes, then the community that you live in prospers, and the governmental arrangement over that community prospers, and everybody is happy, and everybody has a nice life living in the community. Because why? Because you do your job well. And as long as you are a security on the stock exchange, which your body is a security on the New York Stock Exchange, then we say if you got a son and he's marrying a girl that comes from a very rich, a very wealthy family, we say, well, she's of good stock. Or the girl, your daughter's getting married to a young man who comes from a very wealthy family, and we say, well, he's of very good stock. He's of stock. And I'm thinking, what, your daughter's marrying a cow? No, he's a very good stock, meaning that's how he is viewed. His body is a stock on the stock market, but it's a very wealthy stock. You are a common stock. If you're not a millionaire, you're just a common stock. But the problem is that you are considered to be a stock on the stock exchange. And that's why when you buy a house, it has a backyard because your children play in the backyard. It's a stockyard. Your children and you are considered to be a stock on the New York Stock Exchange. And this is why when you do your work well, you make a lot of money and you're paying taxes and you're paying into your community. You're putting money back into the community. And therefore you are, you're continually to, give security to the community in which you live. So you're a good stock and you are security to the stock exchange. This is why when you finally retire, which usually means you're going to bed, you're going to retire, you are now getting a token from what you have put into the system all your life. You're going to get something called Social Security. Why? Because it's just a little dividend of the money that you have had to pay to stay alive and raise your children and feed your family. You had to pay out money every day. That's why your money is called currency. It's like an ebb and the flow of the current. It all flows in and it flows back out. It flows in and it flows back out. So your money is a security on the stock exchange. Your body is a security for the corporation. And so when you retire, you get Social Security. Why? Because you are the security for the body social. The body social is called a corporation. This is why you are a corporation. You are a business. And what you do, like I said to you before, if I see you come out of a restaurant one night at 2:00 in the morning with some woman, and I say to you the next day when we're talking privately, I said, you know that woman you were with last night, she's bad company. And you tell me, mind your own business. Business, company, and then I find out you're going to get married and she's going to be your partner. So what are we talking about here? Partners, business, company, and then you find out, no, the whole of life is a business. Just like the movie Network said many years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. There was a movie called Network. And one of the characters in the movie explained to another one that here's the way the world works. The earth is a business. It's a business. It's a corporation, one big world corporation. And all governments are corporations. They are businesses and corporations. They've been incorporated through the original corporation, which was the Vatican, under the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire developed the idea of corporations. And so today, all the countries in Europe that were under the Caesars of Rome are referred to as corporations. And the United States is a privately owned corporation. It's a municipal corporation that was incorporated in 1870. How many people know that? You're not living in the United States of America. That's why we don't call each other Americans. We don't call each other Americans. We're not Americans. Americans was a particular kind of people living under the United States of America in 1776. After the Civil War, we're no longer Americans. We are U.S. citizens. U.S. is a term for a corporation. A company was formed called the United States Company, the United States Corporation. And each one of us is an employee of that corporation, and we are referred to as United States citizens. You're not a citizen of America. You're not an American. This is why when you go into court, you cannot you cannot say anything in a court about your citizen. You are a citizen of the United States of America. No, you're not. You are a U.S. citizen. United States Incorporate. It's a corporation. Go on the web and look up the word United States is a corporation. And listen to all the professors and all the experts on the subject of international law and find out that the United States is simply Washington, D.C., and the few islands that it controls. It has nothing to do, United States has nothing to do with the 50 states of the Union. It has nothing to do with us at all. And so you need to know how governments work. The United States government is a corporation. It's a business. And this is why if you're going to get married, you've got to have a license because you are a corporation. You're going to do business. So you got to have a business license. The girl you're marrying is a business, and you are a business. Thank God you get married as none of my business. But who I sleep with is none of your business.
Right.
The idea is that humans are a business. We are a company. This is why you could say he's good company or she's bad company. Because why? Because it's a business. You need to understand the foundations on which your life exists today. You don't understand how the world really works. That's why you have courts. That's why you have police. You have police because they enforce the policies of the corporation. Corporations cannot make law. They can only have a policy. And so seers can decide what they want to do with their business, and it's not the law of God. They don't make the law of the land. No, it's just a company. It's just a corporation. And so they have certain things they call their laws that they live by, their corporation operates under. And it's not a law because corporations are not empowered to make laws. But they do have their operation. They do the things they want to do with their company. It's called a policy. So the company has a policy. And so the United States has a policy. And so to make sure you follow that policy, they have police. They enforce policy. So by who? By politicians make up the policy, and it's backed up by the armed police, which gives us our word police, policy, politicians. It all goes back to the whole idea of the world is a corporation. It's a business. I am saying that I don't believe there is a way out. I know that there are things that you can do. There are a couple of documents on my Research Society website. There's under interesting articles. There's a couple of articles right there on the very first page of interesting articles on my research site that are so extraordinary, so incredible, that a way that you can walk away from government, period. But you don't necessarily want to do that. You can walk away from government, and government has nothing ever to do with you ever again. There is a way to do that. but it's not something you want to do. I do not advise it at all. Because when you walk away from government, you have walked away from the world you live in. There's no more going to a bank, no more getting a job, no more paying bills, no more driving a car, no more of that, none of it. You might as well get yourself in a canoe or a boat and go to an island in the South Pacific and live on the island all by yourself, period. And whatever happens to you there, no matter what happens, you're by yourself and you're on your own forever. That's what will happen if you walk away from the society and the world in which we live. Everything is a business, and you are involved in a corporation. And so if you walk away from this world that we live in, you can do that. If you know how to do it in America, you can walk away from the government forever. And there's an article I found on the web that is so incredibly important and explains to you exactly who you are on the earth in America today. If you're in this country or if you're living in a country in the Western world, there's an article that explains who you are and how, if you have to and you want to, you can walk away from Western civilization's government, period. And nothing can be done. You can walk away and nobody can touch you. So yeah, there are ways that you can get out of the mess we're in, but you don't really want to do that because you cannot no longer work to get a job. You can't do any banking. You can't do anything because you're no longer a part of the civilization that you're living in. You're no longer a part of it. They have nothing to do with you, and you got nothing to do with them. And if you have a bad accident, no hospital will take you. Nobody will take you. Nobody will touch you, period. Why? Because you're not part of the system. And so I say I don't think there's any way that mankind is going to be able to extricate himself out of the situation we're in. All I am suggesting that you want to do is educate yourself. At least understand how things work. Then you can maneuver yourself a lot easier as long as you understand. You're understanding something doesn't mean you're going to change it, but it does mean that you're smart now and you now learn how it works and what you can do and what you can't do and how to live in the system better so that it doesn't touch you and it doesn't harm you. Education is the answer, and that's all I'm asking, and that's all I want to give. I'm not giving any advice as an attorney. I'm not a lawyer. And I say to the public all the time, I'm not that clever. I'm not that smart. What I bring to the table are the people that I have met in my life and the subjects which they have opened me up to that I had no idea in the world that existed. And the Zachariah Sitchin is just one of many people that I got involved with. I wanted to promote him, and so I became a business partner. But there's a whole lot more going on in the world and a lot of interesting people out there that I have had the privilege of meeting and talking with and becoming close friends with. And this is why I talk about the things I do, because these are the kind of people I like being around. I love hearing the scientists and philosophers and teachers and researchers, astronauts and politicians, all kinds of interesting people telling me all kinds of phenomenally interesting things about the world we live in. And that's why I do what I do, because I love being able to share with the world of mankind. I want to share with everyone what I have been learning over the years. So that's what I do. And so much of it is so controversial. Why? Because most people have never heard real truth about much of anything. Right. So that's what I do, and that's who I am, and that's why I try and stay on the cutting edge of what's happening around the world by talking to all the best of the best. And I've got so many dear friends that have let me in on their work. And I've had so many interesting experiences learning about things I didn't even know existed. Vibration. Audio vibrations are very important to spiritually understanding the universe. Mm-hmm. We have scientists who are telling you about the difference between who built the pyramids and how they were built, and some are saying that vibrations, sounds are very important, and vibrations and sounds are extremely important to the human brain, how the brain relates to spiritual sounds. And we know that the great composers during the Middle Ages, the master composers were composing music according to mathematics, and that it wasn't just a beautiful sound they were producing. No, it was a mathematical understanding of vibrations that the brain relates to, that the human mind can relate to certain vibrational frequencies. And it puts you into a spiritual state of mind. This is why when you go to churches, sometimes during some of the big churches in Europe, you go in and you just feel the feeling in the church is just so very strange. It's like a spiritual presence there. No, it's not a spiritual presence. What you're feeling in those churches is called geomancy. Geomancy is the study of ley lines. Ley lines are electrical forces, force frequencies on the earth that the ancient peoples knew all about. The Celtic Druids from Europe were experts on where the ley lines are on the earth. They said that there are lines of electrical power going on the earth today. And if you stand in the front of that line, if you step on that line, you will feel that electrical frequency go through you. And you can feel that there's something godly going on. There's something otherworldly you're feeling. No, it's just a different kind of electrical frequency. It's called ley lines. And if you go back and you look at it, that's what you're doing when you're singing in churches. You are humming and communicating with the spirit world with vibrations and frequencies. And we know all of that has been used by religions for thousands of years. Mm. And this is why, incidentally, the music industry today in Hollywood is able to captivate the minds of young people and captivate. In motion pictures, they have something called mood music. When there's going to be some terrible thing happen, there's some kind of a sinister sound or music that tells you something is bad going to happen. If it was a happy scene, you will have the music to accompany a happy scene. So Hollywood makes music to present a particular scene in a movie. And so it's called mood music. It puts you in the right mood to experience what the movie is going to show you. So music has always been used to connect the human brain to the spirit world. That's why music is so profoundly important today when you see how the young people are being misled into, and rap music was developed by the people who developed the rap music was developed by what we would call the British East India Company. And it has to do with the idea of privatizing jails. Prisons are being privatized. Prisons are being opened up and run by private corporations. And so in order for those corporations to make money, they have to have a lot of prisoners. And so the only way you're going to get a lot of prisoners is to whip the people up in the country to be prisoners and to be criminals so they can be prisoners. So the same people who came up with the idea of privatizing prisons have come up with the idea of the best way to run a prison is to have it filled with people. And so if you have it filled with people, you'll make money because it's a private institution. It's a private operation. And so they came up with the idea, the same people came up with the idea for private prisons, came up with the idea of rap music. And we know that because I've read the articles by the people who gave us rap music. They said the same people realize if you're going to have a privatized prison, you need to have plenty of prisoners. And how you do that? Well, you make prisoners out of putting it into the spirit of the people to be revolutionaries, radicals, and criminals, and you give them music that promotes that, and that promotes that kind of understanding of the world. Rap music is designed to create a criminal element so that we'll have criminals to put into prisons. If we got a big prison, brand new prison, but you don't have any prisoners, you're just losing money. And I would add to that there was a book put out many years ago that was a phenomenally important book called 4 Arguments for the Elimination of Television by Jerry Mander, M-A-N-D-E-R. Okay. 4 Arguments for the Elimination of Television. And in this book, the man who wrote it was the head of an advertising agency in San Francisco that advertised the biggest corporations in the world. He was in charge of promoting Ford Motor Company, General Electric, General Motors, etc. And his company was very, very large. And he said in his book that he quit. He walked off and walked away from the industry because he wanted to tell the people what was really going on with television. And he explained how television actually works and who founded it, who did the experimenting on television and brought it into our world, and how it works and what it does, and electrically what it does with us. And he was saying that the Germans, the Nazis, were very big on working up, trying to come together, bring their knowledge together to create what they called television. Mm-hmm. The Nazis were. It was a Nazi operation to try and figure out how to give pictures to the human population on the earth, how you could propagandize them with movies and television and pictures and sounds. And so it has a Nazi connection, television does. But the other point he brought out, I think was very germane to what we're talking about, is that television is firing the picture tube is firing rays, electronic signals, and there's the electronic signals that fire the pictures onto the screen. It also has another electronic signal connected to it. It's called the term he used. I seem to recall it was like a riding. This other signal was riding on the main signal to send you the pictures. The
carrier wave.
There's another, and so that other signal that you don't see is designed. It was based on something called Earth resonant frequency. Mm-hmm. Earth resonant frequency was a frequency of vibrations and sound that puts you to sleep. That's why he says it's the same frequency if you sit under a big tree and a meadow with everything is very quiet, very peaceful. You're sitting on the ground and you're laying up against the tree and you fall asleep. It's called Earth frequency. There's a frequency that the Earth is giving off that you are feeling as a human, and it puts you to sleep. And so he says, so the same frequency, and he gave the number of it and explained it. And he said that's when you sit down to watch TV, it is designed, television is designed to hit your brain with an earth resonant frequency as it is giving you audio and video pictures. And what it's doing is putting your brain to sleep so that you will not have any problem accepting whatever it is you're seeing. It's putting your brain to sleep with something called earth resonant frequency. and the mind goes to sleep. Even though you're sitting there with your eyes open, your brain is sleeping, and you don't even realize it. Now they're telling you stuff on the television, television show, which is propaganda, is putting you to sleep and telling you what you should think and how to view things. So it's a propaganda machine. But he said, the point I really liked is he said something to the effect that television is propaganda, but propaganda does not deceive you. Propaganda helps you to deceive yourself. You're buying into it when you sit there in front of a television and watch it so-called news programs of the network news. It's actually a propaganda machine to put you to sleep so you will believe whatever it tells you. There is a very definite connection between humans with your human brain being able to commingle with the spirit world. You're opening yourself up to the spirit world by sounds, and this is why there's always been chanting. The chantings are being done by all the ancient religions in the world, because chanting, the Bible calls Satan, that says Satan, when he was created, he was given pipes. He was the god of pipes and sounds. I think that's interesting. There's a scripture in the Old Testament that says Satan, when he came into the picture, he was the god of pipes and sounds and music. He was a musical god. And this is why the word muse were a term that was given to the angels in the book of Hesiod, the Theogony of Hesiod. Hesiod was an ancient Greek who said he had one-on-one communications and conversations with spirit angels from another world. They came here and talked with him, and he said they told him they call themselves muses, which gives us our word music, amusement, museum, amusement. Muses were spirit entities, and this is why we have something called music, because these spirits are communicating with us in our brains with frequencies, with radio frequencies, with musical frequencies. And so yes, there is a definite connection between the use of sounds and chants, etc., in our religious services, because we are actually communicating with the spirit world when you're hearing these chants. The book Charles Fort wrote was given to me when I was 19 years old as a gift from a man that I am sure was not fully human. And he suggested that I should read a book, and he gave me a copy. It was called The Complete Works of Charles Fort. And I think that the book of Charles Fort is probably the most phenomenally fascinating book you'll ever pick up. You can still get it today in bookstores. You can order it easy. You can go on my website. JordanMaxwellShow.com. And on there you will see a folder, a little flyer that says recommended materials. Those are the books I highly recommend. And Charles Fort is on there. Look for the Complete Works of Charles Fort on recommended materials, and just click on it. It'll take you right to Amazon to order it. It's called The Complete Works of Charles Fort, and what that book does, it'll blow your mind. It tells you what Charles Fort did was he went to libraries, and he was able to, he had some sort of a retirement or some sort of monies from his family, so he didn't have to work. So he spent many years going through the library in New York and going through all the big libraries, looking up all the strangest experiences that have ever happened on the earth that science has no explanation for whatsoever. And he outlines in footnotes in every paragraph he talks about some strange incident that happened in the world that nobody has any idea to explain it at all. And then he tells you where it was written, who wrote the article, where you can find it if you want to do your own research. It's a gold mine of occultism. It's a gold mine of hidden knowledge about strange things which have happened on the earth that nobody can explain. And I was fascinated with the book back when I was 19 years old, when it was given to me by my girlfriend's father. It was a strange experience when I met my girlfriend's father. He was not of this world. There's no doubt in my mind of that. And he suggested that I read this book, which I did, and it changed my life overnight.